Hello everyone, I'm Stephanie Haney here with a special edition of In the News Now. We have the next court date for Bryan Kohberger, the man believed to be responsible for the fatal stabbings of 4 University of Idaho students. The judge scheduled the preliminary hearing for more than 6 months from now, set now for Monday, June 26th, and reserved the entire week for the hearing. That's in case they need all that time to present evidence. Now, in the status hearing today, the judge also asked Kohberger to waive his right to a speedy preliminary hearing. Otherwise, in Idaho, that would have to have been held within 2 weeks of his first appearance. So instead of having to have the hearing by next Friday, it has been pushed over 6 months. The 28-year-old was present at the status conference and spoke only briefly when answering the judge's questions. Now Kohberger is being held in jail without bond. He made his first appearance in court last week, and that's when the probable cause affidavit was unsealed, shedding more light on how Kohberger was linked to the crimes. KTVB's Morgan Romero takes us inside that initial hearing.
Inside this courthouse, where Bryan Kohberger had his first court appearance in Idaho, a Latah County magistrate judge read him his charges. 1 count of burglary for unlawfully entering 1122 King Road with the intent to commit murder, and 4 counts of first-degree murder.
Count 2 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Bryan C. Kohberger, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogan, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, kill and murder Kaylee Gonsalves.
If found guilty, he could face life in prison or death. His public defender was appointed, and the judge issued a no-contact order for the victims' families. The judge also issued no bail, as Kohberger sits in the Latah County Jail.
I am going to leave the bail set in this case as no bail at this point in time until I have additional or further information at a later date and time.
19 pages, 1 redacted, of details in the case came out through a probable cause affidavit Thursday morning. The document shows law enforcement was watching Kohberger early on in the investigation, about 2 weeks after the murders. At the time, police publicly said they had no person of interest, and they kept information close to the vest, which frustrated many. The PCA says Xana and Ethan were found on the 2nd floor of the King Street home. Maddie and Kaylee were found in a bed together on the 3rd floor. In the bed next to Maddie, investigators say they noticed a tan leather knife sheath, which is a cover for the blade of a knife. They figured out it was a K-bar knife with Marine Corps insignia. The Idaho State Lab found a single source of male DNA on the sheath. They then compared it to trash they took from the Kohberger family home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania on December 27th. They say the DNA from the sheath was a nearly 100% match to that of the suspect's father. According to the affidavit, the 2 surviving roommates told police everyone was home by 2 a.m. and in their rooms by 4 a.m. One of the roommates says she was woken up around 4. She thought Kaylee was playing with her dog upstairs, which officers say they heard barking on a neighbor's security camera around the time of the murders. The affidavit says the roommate heard one of the victims say, "There's someone here," but she didn't see anything. She says she opened her door again after she heard crying from Xana's room and a man say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Then, when she opened her door a 3rd time, she saw a person in black, wearing a mask covering the bottom of their face. She described him as tall, with an athletic build but not muscular, and with bushy eyebrows. He walked past her to the back sliding door, and she stood in a, quote, frozen shock phase. Investigators believe the murders happened between 4 and 4:25 a.m., November 13th. The 911 call wasn't made until around noon from one of the roommates' phones inside the home. On surveillance video they reviewed, investigators saw a Hyundai Elantra driving by the home multiple times around the time of the murders. Investigators learned Kohberger drove a Hyundai Elantra, and through cell phone records, investigators discovered he had been by the King Road home at least 12 times before the murders since the summer, mostly in the evenings and early morning. What the probable cause affidavit doesn't show is whether there are any connections between Kohberger and any of the people he's accused of killing. Outside the courthouse, after Thursday's hearing, the Gonsalves family gave a short statement to reporters through their attorney.
It's obviously an emotional time for the family, seeing the defendant for the first time. This is the beginning of the criminal justice system, and the family will be here for the long haul.
The unsealed affidavit also shows how investigators were able to build a detailed timeline of events starting with the early morning hours of November 13th when the murders happened. KTVB's Abby Davis digs into how police tracked Kohberger.
According to the affidavit, a car matching Kohberger's, a white Hyundai Elantra, was seen on camera at 2:53 a.m. on November 13th, leaving Pullman, Washington, heading toward Moscow. That's about a 15-minute drive. That same Elantra was picked up again at 3:26 a.m. heading west on Indian Hills Drive. Then 2 minutes later, heading west on Steiner at Highway 95, which is less than a mile from the house on King Road where the murders happened. Starting at 3:29, the Elantra was seen passing the house 3 times. At 4:04, the Elantra turned around at a nearby apartment complex before going back and making a 3-point turn onto Queen Road. 16 minutes later, at 4:20, Kohberger's white Elantra is seen on camera speeding away from the area, heading south. About an hour later, at 5:25, several traffic cameras in Pullman and on the Washington State University campus capture the Elantra returning. Fast forward 12 days, on November 25th, the Moscow Police Department asked area law enforcement to look for a white Hyundai Elantra. Then, on November 29th, WSU police found a 2015 Hyundai Elantra registered to a student, 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger, a graduate student studying criminology. His car was found about a half hour later at his WSU apartment complex in Pullman. His driver's license picture and information also matched the roommate's description of the man she saw in the house the morning of the murders. That pushed Moscow police to look into Kohberger's cell phone data, a number they got after pulling him over for a traffic violation back in August, before the murders. At 2:42 a.m. on November 13th, Kohberger's phone pinged at his apartment in Pullman. 5 minutes later, that phone left the apartment, traveling south through Pullman before it's turned off at 2:47. The phone doesn't ping again until 4:48 on Highway 95 south of Moscow, near Blaine. It then traveled south on 95 to Genesee, then west to Uniontown, and then north back to Pullman, where a white sedan was picked up on traffic cameras at 5:27, taking a roundabout way to his final destination.
So what's next in the case, and what are police and investigators and prosecutors working on now? King's Erica Zucco spoke with an assistant law professor about what to expect.
A deep dive for evidence in this King Road home and weeks of investigation described in this affidavit identified DNA found on a knife sheath, cell phone data, surveillance video, and a shoe print as major drivers of Kohberger's arrest.
What the police have done here is generated a host of circumstantial pieces of evidence. So, we have a car here, we have a sheath here, we have a surveillance footage at this time, and we have this. And together, that overall circle paints a picture of we can put this person here at this particular time when these happen.
But we don't know yet if Moscow police have found the murder weapon, likely a knife similar to this one, or if they've confirmed a motive. The court's gag order means investigators can't release those details until the facts are exposed in court or in public documents. But University of Idaho Assistant Professor of Law Sam Newton says it's safe to assume they're still gathering evidence, meaning new tips are still helpful.
They think they have enough to sustain at least an arrest and moving forward there. They may not feel like they have enough to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And so releasing the name of a suspect to the public allows the police to get more information to solidify their case.
Right now, defense attorneys are also conducting their own investigation, including a search of the crime scene. Newton says the defense may also consider options like asking to move the case to another jurisdiction and will comb through the other tips collected.
And now a Pennsylvania public defender is speaking out about his connection to this case. The lawyer who represented Kohberger from the moments after his arrest until he was returned to Idaho's jurisdiction spoke with KREM's Janelle Finch about what it was like working with the high-profile client.
Jason Labar says he first met his client at the Monroe County Correctional Facility.
Ordinary, average type guy.
He says the first thing he said to the suspect was, "Don't tell me anything about the case. Don't tell me any facts. That's information for your Idaho attorney."
And then I explained to him, essentially the extradition proceedings. And he was very calm. He was aware of what was going on. He was aware of the murders.
He says his client was intentional about what was said on his behalf in the statement to the public.
The statement that was written by myself in my office, but the exonerated, the eager to be exonerated was his. He specifically said eager to be exonerated rather than he was innocent or something like that.
Now, Proving his innocence is in someone else's hands. Kootenai County Public Defender Ann Taylor.
When I spoke to Attorney Taylor, I essentially said, tag, you're it.
Labar says after reading the affidavit, he says his client's defense team may be able to poke holes in an upcoming trial.
So you have transfer DNA on the teeth. Transfer DNA can stay on an item for up to at least a year if no one else touches it or it's unblemished or something like that. So, I mean, that doesn't place him at the scene on the day of the crime. Certainly it's suspicious that he turns his cell phone off, but cell phone tower pings are unreliable at best. If it pings off a tower, you're talking that the individual's within 20-mile radius of that tower.
Labar says for those invested in this case, this is just the beginning of a long process ahead. As things continue to develop, he says the public should view this case with an open and objective mind. Labar says he's continuing to work with the suspect's family in Pennsylvania, but will no longer be working directly with his former client now that he's in Idaho.
About 10 miles from the University of Idaho is Washington State University. That's where Kohberger was a doctoral student. WSU students are now back on campus following Kohberger's arrest. The university says the new year and semester bring an opportunity for growth, peace, and healing. King's Eric Azuko talked with students about how it feels returning to classes.
Washington State University in Pullman is known for its loyal community of Cougs. Today, reunited for the first time since an arrest in the Moscow murders.
Just working together, making sure that we're looking out for each other, having each other's backs.
The campus was drenched in crimson, gray, and a cold winter rain mirroring what some students described as a slightly muted tone to the start of the semester.
Weather and recent events that have happened.
A week and a half's time has passed since news of former PhD student Bryan Kohberger's arrest. Wazoo's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology says it was aggrieved by the alleged horrendous acts. In a letter to students, Wazoo's provost detailed safety resources, writing that a new year and a new semester bring an opportunity for growth, peace, and most of all, healing. Wazoo says the university is planning several spaces and activities to allow students to process the news. The campus in Pullman sits just 8 miles from Moscow, home to the University of Idaho. Communities healing together as they remember Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves.
I think how the community handled just this instance was amazing. The outflow of support for the families of those affected, the tips going into Moscow police and everything. I think as a community, we did an amazing job with all of it.
The school is offering counseling and reminded students of safety resources.
I think we just got to kind of look out for each other and make sure that we're all getting the right resources and getting the help we need.
As the community weathers what's next together.
Of course, there are many claims being made online about the details of the case. Brandon Lewis from our National Verify team looks into claims that Kohberger asked for help researching why people commit crimes on social media.
Bryan Kohberger made his first court appearance in an Idaho courtroom on January 5th after he was accused of killing 4 college students 2 months earlier. Leading up to his appearance, social media users began sharing Reddit posts that they claim were written by the suspect. The posts say, "I am inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime." The poster identified himself as Bryan Kohberger, and the posts were shared in subreddits like ex-cons and prisons. So, let's verify. Did Bryan Kohberger write the posts on Reddit asking for help researching why people commit crimes? Our sources are court documents filed in Leda County District Court in Idaho, DeSales University, and a review of Internet Archives of Reddit using the Wayback Machine. The posts on Reddit appeared in June and have since been removed from the platform. Prosecutors introduced an affidavit written by Moscow, Idaho police, which confirmed the Reddit posts were made by Kohberger. Using the Wayback Machine, we were able to look at the original post. They included a DeSales University email address for Bryan Kohberger. DeSales confirms Kohberger was a student there until 2022, where he earned his bachelor's in psychology and a master's in criminal justice. So, yes, Bryan Kohberger did post on Reddit asking for help researching why people commit crimes. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
We'll continue to stay on this case and provide updates as we learn more. Thanks for watching this special edition of In the News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney.